I'm here under the tent next to the Alaskan Gypsy, and we've sandblasted the entire hull and painted it with a inorganic zinc primer. And there's a few spots here where the jack stands were. Obviously I moved them to sandblast under them, but I didn't move them to paint under them because I didn't want to move the stand onto fresh paint. So it's been a few days now. I see I'm getting a little bit of water there. It's been pretty windy and rainy the last few hours. And we've had quite a bit of rain, but anyhow, so I've moved the jack stand over, and here's the patch that was sandblasted and has since got a bit of water on it and rusted a little bit. It's got the nice surface profile texture, but also a little bit of rust, and I don't want to paint over that rust. Most of them are not rusting. You can see like this one here, it's looking really pretty clean. I'll probably go over it anyhow, but what I'm gonna do is use the Bristle Blaster. This thing, made a video about it. I thought I'd be using it a lot on the hull, but actually haven't really hardly used it at all. But it does make a pretty decent surface profile, and mostly I just don't want to lose that beautiful surface profile, that texturing that the sandblasting gave me. I don't want to lose that when I clean those areas up before I just touch up paint them. So I'm going to use that thing and see how it does getting rid of that little tiny bit of surface rust. Should be pretty easy for it. Most of them are pretty clean. That one's just got a little bit of sandblasting grit and a tiny bit of rust. And that one is also looking pretty good. A little bit of color in there, but so we'll see how it does. And Bristle Blaster for light rust removal without losing surface texture. So here I'm just hitting each one of these little jack stand patches where we don't have the inorganic zinc primer, just taking off any grit, light surface rust, and trying to keep my texture in there from the blast. In a previous video, I was cutting a section of plate out of the hull here on the Alaskan Gypsy, and I used the Bristle Blaster to texture some longitudinal stringers that were getting welded onto that plate, and it did a good job. I was quite happy with just being able to put a little texture on those plates. But the wire wheel basically self-destructed in like maybe 6 minutes of use. It was completely garbage after that, and that was my second wheel that I had used that didn't even last 5 minutes without having major issues with wire. The wires were just falling out. It was essentially unusable after definitely less than 10 minutes of operation. And I was suspicious it might have been because the wire wheels were a little bit old and possibly a little bit rusted themselves. And today I just put a new bristle brush, I guess, or wheel on here that didn't show any signs of corrosion, no rust on it or anything. Looked perfectly brand new. I actually got them off eBay because these things are really wicked expensive. If you buy them from like a Monty authorized dealer or whatever, they are, I think they're like $40 a wheel. And I found some on eBay. I think I was paying about $10 each or $6 each or something like that, and bought a 12-pack bundle or something. And it's actually kind of funny. I gotta wonder if people are taking them from work and then selling them on eBay on the weekends or something. But anyhow, they're a good deal on eBay sometimes, and I bought a bag of them, and I just put one of those on here. It appears to be a genuine Monty bristle brush, wheel, whatever, has their branding on there. It looks exactly like the other ones that came with this used machine. But so here we go. What I wanted to say is I just went around and touched up all the spots under the jack stands on the hull. I probably ran this for, I don't know, maybe 8 minutes or something. Not very long, but it appears like I haven't lost a single one of the little wire brushes on it. Well, there's a couple that are broken, I see there, but it's still in great condition. Looks like it's not even a quarter of the way through its life. I mean, not even close, honestly. It looks like essentially almost no damage or loss from that amount of use. So I just wanted to say that this thing is, I'm happy to have it. I'm not using it to do a great amount of work on the hull, and I'm very glad I'm not, because it would be ridiculously slow compared to real industrial scale sandblasting. But it's a wonderful little tool to be able to do what I would consider a high quality preparation job for painting without the incredible setup, cleanup, and expense of normal sandblasting. So it's a great alternative tool to have in the kit. I'm quite happy to be able to texture things. As I've learned, having a surface profile or texture is so important for having really good adhesion with your paints direct to metal. So this is a great thing to have. Very happy. I think the wires are going to last a lot longer if I'm not using rusty old bristle wire brush discs, whatever they are. So I just wanted to correct that, or let you know that that was the case with those other ones, lasting hardly at all. And at this point, I'm pretty happy with what I got, and I think I might get the paint out. Or maybe we'll do the weld-on zincs first. That's something that I didn't do a video about, but we can talk about right now, because I'm not in a rush to sandblast the hull anymore. But I'll show you on the other side of the boat how the zincs were set up. So it has bolt-on zincs. They're about 15 inches apart. There was about 7 per side, I think, which there's a lot of confusion online with these videos. This boat suffered from electrolysis damage. It is not because it didn't have adequate zinc design or systems. I have every reason to believe that how it was originally built and set up with the zincs was appropriate. I think the hull was in excellent condition for the first 20 so years of its service. The only reason it suffered was the zincs were not replaced. They sacrificed themselves, and they weren't replaced for a period of years. And so it sat with essentially no zincs for years. That's what the problem was. So I'm not planning to change the zinc system on the boat, because I don't think it needs it, other than I am changing the way that the zincs are, the design of the zincs themselves. So this is the type of zinc that was on there. These are traditional weld-on style. Usually you would just hold it up to the hull and weld it to the hull. Simple, except you have to have a welder, and you obviously pretty difficult to do underwater. So I'm switching. Well, okay, here's the thing. These are weld-on style zincs, but they have holes drilled in them so that they can be bolted on, which is maybe back in 1992 when this boat was launched. Perhaps bolt-on zincs weren't readily available. I'm not really sure why they went with weld-on style zincs but bolting them on. But so now on the Gypsy, to change the zincs, you would buy these weld-on zincs, try and drill holes in them at exact right spacing on the straps, and they're not all perfect. You know, each one is bent a little bit different, and the result is it's kind of hard to put these on to those studs that are welded onto the hull, because the lineup isn't always perfect. And so I'm switching the system over to what are actually designed to be bolt-on zincs. The zincs come with holes in them already. And here's the These are kind of hard to take off, but under these are just actually it's Wiersbo pipe, 1/2-inch Wiersbo over the threads. I welded on 1/2-inch by 1.25 or 1/2 inch by 1 inch, I forget, stainless bolts before sandblasting, and then my dad and I put these bits of it's like plastic pipe, plumbing pipe, over the threads so they didn't get damaged sandblasting. So under there is the new spacing. So these are only about 6 inches apart, and the Zincs, which I don't have one here to show you, they're built at the factory to go on there, bolt-on, easy. Something that I could easily swap out underwater, just free diving. In a wetsuit would be no problem at all to swap out the Zincs and keep an eye on them. So here on the starboard side, we still have the old 15-inch spacing zinc bolts. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think, along that side, and then the rudder had one on each side of it, and then there was one down here as well. So I think that's what there was. So today I think we're going to cut off the old bolts and weld on new ones, but we'll have to grind our primer off where we're going to weld on the new ones, and so it's going to be a little bit of a touch-up process. So I might do that before I touch up these spots so I don't get it all paint fumey down here. We can work, and then I'll do them all at once, which I want to paint around those new bolts as well. So I think that'll be the plan. Probably give you a time-lapse video to watch that if you want. I might use this new welder while I'm talking on and on. Show you, we welded those new ones on. The port side was 7018 3/32 rod with the little Miller stick welder. But I do have this BestArc MiG 145 little wire feed welder that I was actually given the welder, and the company reached out to me and said, would you review one of our welders? And I said, well, actually, you know what, I would like to have a wire feed welder here. And so anyhow, I might try that. I might use that to tack, at least to tack those stainless bolts on. We'll see. But I'd like to, I use that welder a bit. Actually, I'm happy with it. It did a bit of work for me on some really the deeper divots before we sandblasted, but I was really jamming on time and didn't film that part of the work, I don't think. So I've since used that welder. I'm quite pleased with it, but I'd like to give you a little bit more of video content review about it before I make a video about it. So there we are. I think I'm going to figure out my weld-on Zincs and get all the parts I need for that and get to work on it. About ready to weld on the new bolt-on Zincs. This is, you have one of the insides of one of the bolt-on Zincs without its zinc on it, just the metal strap as a guide, and I got the stainless steel bolt with nuts on each side to sort of as a jig to hold it in the right spot. And I'm gonna try the little BestArc 145 MIG gun and see if I can get this tacked on, and then I'll probably switch to stick weld on the Miller 7018, or actually I think my dad's gonna have a go at this if he can see what he's doing. He said he'd like to weld those on, so but I'm gonna try and tack this on with the little MIG and see how that goes. Good little test for it here. Be pretty convenient to get those little tacks in place. So let's see, turn it on. I got it plugged into 220. It's booting up. Thing's super easy to set up. Doing gasless welding, 040 flux core wire, and basically I can just set my amperage. I'm at 95. That should be fine. I got my spots here picked out with the paint removed. So let's see if the little BestArc can tack these stainless bolts onto the keel of the Alaskan Gypsy. Well, there we go. Worked great. Had a little trouble getting my puddle to join up on that first one between the hull and the bolt, but it did fine once I got the angle right. And there we go. I'm gonna put one more tack just on the bottom of that one. Bring in here to see. There's the little welder. And here's what we just did. Just tack these stainless bolts on there. Oh, it's just, that one's one I was having trouble getting the puddle to join up. This one really did a great job. Just got my connection between the hull and the bolt right away. The other ones did good, so that's pretty sweet. I can tell you one thing about using the 7018. Got this old Lincoln Jet LH 78 MR 332, basically 7018 rod. It was actually on the Alaskan Gypsy, which is cool, down in the fabrication welding shop. Nice to have, brand new. It was sealed up. Nice to have that, didn't have to go buy it. It's been working good. And that's my preference for welding those on there for the full weld, but that was pretty convenient with the little MIG gun for sure. So this welder, I actually ended up using it a fair bit on some thin spots, like I said, but didn't film it. So I know it works good. I was totally happy with it. Haven't had any problems with it so far. And that's pretty convenient for tacking those on, I gotta say. I think I'm gonna do these other 3 while I'm here, and then let my dad hit it with the 7018 stick weld since he was wanting to do that. Yeah, you could still tack over it with the 18 if you wanted, but should be a lot easier to do it.
Oh yeah, is tacking real good?
I mean, I don't know real good. I'm not asking too much out of it, right? But it's sticking it on there. It's a lot easier than trying to get that 7018 to
Oh, yeah.
arc right.
Breaking the slag and stuff.
Could you hold that welder up for me? I'm a little short on my lead.
Go ahead, you got plenty now.
It just makes the little babyest tacks.
Oh no, that's great for if it holds.
We put a couple more on there. Those ones were really small. There we go.
I'll go on down and do that.
Might as well hit those two, yeah. Well, there we go. BestArc MIG welder. Tacked on my stainless half-inch bolts onto the steel hull. No problem, super easy, worked perfectly, honestly. So that was convenient. And easy as that. Look at this thing. It weighs, I think, about 8 pounds and functions just fine. Things are about, I think they're like $150. I would say it's really pretty incredible value. Even comes with 2 rolls of wire. So we're gonna switch over now to stick weld 7018 on those, that they're tacked in place. Just tiny little tacks, which is great. Minimal heat input, super easy. No stuck rod trying to get started. So there you go. So I was just realizing my dad's down there working on welding those zinc bolts on. And I was thinking, oh, okay, well, he's got the other welder going now, so I gotta wait. I can't keep going, tacking the zinc bolts on with this little wire feed because we only have one 220 power cord on the boat right now. So I thought, okay, well, I'll find something else to do. And then I realized this little BestArc MIG stick TIG welder. I forgot to mention too, it stick welds also. We're just familiar using that other little Miller stick welder, but it came with this pigtail 110 to welder style plug, and I got a 110 volt extension cord sitting here, so I'm just gonna plug this thing into that and plug the welder into that, and now I'm gonna turn it on, and we should be running on switch on the back. It's booting up, and I'm gonna turn the amperage down a little bit. It was at 95. I don't know, I'll just try at 80. I had plenty of heat running at 95 for these tacks, so we'll see. Now I probably can just keep going, and I gotta say, that's a pretty convenient thing with these tiny welders. it's like a little lunch box, and like, oh heck, you could have 4 of these things for the cost of one, you know, higher end welder or whatever. So I'm gonna give this a try, see if I can't just keep going ahead of them tacking just on a regular 110 volt extension cord. And I'm kind of expecting it's gonna work fine and be awful convenient. So what I'm gonna try and do is just hold the zinc strap with the ground clamp. So, I don't know why I didn't think of this earlier, but, and then I should just be able to use this like a handle to hold that thing in there and not have to tack weld a grounding. We've just been using scraps of flat bar to weld a ground clamp onto the hull, but it dawned on me that I should just be able to use the zinc strap itself as the ground. So let's see how this works. Worked fine. 110 volt, just plugged into about I got an extension cord coming out of the meter box into the tent, and then another probably 100-foot extension cord. I'm probably running 150 feet of relatively lightweight extension cord. It's probably not how you're supposed to do it, but here we are, shipyard tested. It's working. This little wire feed welder is welding me my zinc bolts on there on about 150 feet of extension cord on a rainy day here in Wrangell, Alaska. Can't complain about that. There we go. 4 tacks, 2 per bolt. And I'm welding. Got a second welder going. Staying ahead of the old man with the 7010, 7018 stick. That's pretty sweet. Nothing wrong with that. Setting these bolts back on here to protect the threads, so when he comes along to weld them. He wanted to weld this 7018 with these stainless bolts, but he wasn't sure if he was going to be able to see good enough. But he doesn't like to give up, so he's down there going at it. Must be working okay for him. So I'm going to keep going too and move my little welding system along and tack weld the next one. Got this little area along the chine I was going to show you. I'd shown it in another video, but when I was sandblasting, I just couldn't seem to get the sandblast grit to get into these little tiny holes. Don at Superior Marine suggested that sometimes when he comes across a situation like that, he'll switch grits with the sandblaster, maybe a finer grit or something that can get in there. But I really went over this area over and over, and looking at it now, I'm kind of surprised it didn't clean up a little bit better, but just seemed like it was kind of an impossible little zone, like extreme porosity, but it's from the electrolysis damage. It's just kind of odd the way that it had manifested here. So anyhow, I didn't paint it because I wanted to work on it a little bit more. I didn't want to paint over this much rust. So I'm thinking I'm going to grind it out a little bit and then see if I can't get it cleaned up and maybe put a weld, do a pass or a weld over top of it. Not really sure. Hit it with a grinder a little bit, see how it looks. This area has foam behind it. I do not want to grind in there deep and just re-weld that whole section because I don't want to fight with the foam. I don't want to go tear the workshop apart to get to remove the foam. So whatever I do, it's going to be pretty lightweight. Fortunately, on the chine of the boat, there's like a 1-inch round stock. So I got a decent thermal bank here to work with. If I do a little bit of welding, it's not like it's going to instantly get red hot inside. But something I have more experience than I want is welding with foam back areas on this boat. Mainly, as long as you don't blow through or get it really hot, seems to not be too big of an issue. But if you do blow through or you do get it really hot, it can become quite an issue. So haven't burned the boat down yet, obviously. Don't want to. Oh, let's see. Well, I would say that it's working pretty good. They're not super deep, and hitting them with the grinder just a little bit. I'm removing maybe a 32nd, 64th maybe. Very little metal is getting removed, but it looks like it's cleaning them up. There's a lot less darkness in there. So I think I'm going to continue with this. Grind those out just a little bit, and then I might weld them with a 6000 series rod, honestly, just to act like a cleaner, to pull that rust, burn the porosity out of here. And I've been told recently that 7018 can handle some pretty dirty conditions and burn some crud out of the weld, but I just don't really have the experience with it. And maybe I'll give it a try, but the porosity I've seen before in 7018 is pretty troubling compared to what I've experienced with 6000 series rod. So anyhow, that's where I'm at. I'm gonna grind that out a little bit more and then probably run a thin pass of some sort of a penetrating rod over it. Okay, well, I've gone around a little bit on this, trying to decide what to do. Thinking about how to clean that up with some weld without pushing too much heat into that foam-backed area. And I decided, since my dad's over there welding with the 220 plug, probably just I feel like doing it right now. I'm ready to do it. I want to run it on 110. Because that's the only other power cord I have. And so I'm just going to try this little BestArc MIG thing. And it does stick too, actually, but I realized, why not just try the wire? I'm going to turn the heat up on it. I wonder how high it would go. So 125, that makes sense, 125 amps on 110 volts. So I'm not going to push it to its max. I'm going to go, I'll do it at 100. Set it at 100, and I'll just see if I can burn in. I just need a tiny bit. This is a flux core wire, so my understanding is it actually has pretty decent penetration. It can probably handle those little tiny rust pits. And if not, I'll just look closely at it, and maybe I'll end up coming back with the stick. But for right now, I'm going to tack my ground rod up, or my grounding connection up there. So now I got my ground, and I'm gonna try run a little bead and see how it looks. That's the one thing about this wire is it sure puts a thin, you can really do a thin puddle with this stuff. It looks like it's just paper thin and not very much heat. I can already put my hand on it and it's not burning hot. I only welded about 1 inch, but I'm gonna pick another spot where there's a pretty decent little pit right there with a little bit of rust in it. See how it welds over that. Not getting too much heat. I need to go and get a wire brush so I can actually see what I'm getting there with that, if I'm getting any porosity in there or not. Okay, the moment of truth. There's water on my grinder. Well, it's not perfect. I do have a couple of tiny little spots of porosity in there. It looks like 3 or 4. So, yeah, I'm not totally thrilled with that, the way it's cutting through that dirty metal. It's not bad for most of it. Most of the puddles are pretty clean, but looks like it's not quite able to cut through that much junk without any pinholes, which honestly, the pinholes are tiny, and the epoxy paint and everything is absolutely going to fill those in. And compared to the minefield of little pits, they're really nothing to worry about. So it's probably fine, really, in the scheme of things. The low heat input is definitely a nice feature, so I think I'm going to run a bit more. I can always come back and grind out and re-weld over it if I don't like how it's looking after a while, but right now it's convenient and available. I'm going to run a bit more on there, see how the results go. Let's see, worsening or better. So I did about 25 little puddles, and 2 of them have got little porosity spots in them. So probably welded over, 30 of these little tiny little pit things. So I think that's pretty good. It's definitely getting a little hot. I ran about a 3-inch bead on that one. So I'm probably gonna do a bit more bouncing around. But that's the beauty of the wire feed, is you can just bounce around real quick, don't have to clean much slag. So that'll be my plan here. I think I'm going to call that good. I didn't weld as much as I thought, because honestly, I started looking at it and it's looking pretty good. I don't see very many rust spots in there anymore. I think I was able to weld over all the worst spots with virtually no porosity in the welds. And while it certainly isn't a beautiful sight, looks like it has a rash going on. When you look at the rest of this boat, we're not going for a mirror yacht finish, and I am going to use some epoxy fairing / filling compound on this anyhow, so And we got a lot of coats of barrier epoxy to go on here, so I think that's looking pretty good. I feel fine about that. I'm not looking to rebuild structure there. It's more of just getting rid of those rust spots so that they didn't blister my paint and cause maintenance issues. Not really much of a structural concern there at all for me. So I'm pretty happy with that. I think I'm going to hit it with the Bristle Blaster to texture that surface up, and it'll be ready for paint. Oh, and in regards to our little BestArc buddy here, it worked great. No problems at all. Plugged into 110 power on an extension cord and welding up that little area, no problem whatsoever. Really happy with that. I'm going to head the Bristle Blaster right here. So, same extension cord they're running the welder on, I guess get to plug the Bristle Blaster into. And put a bit of a surface profile on this whole show here. Okay, well, it's not sandblasting, but it certainly is a lot better than nothing. And I can see the little texture that it's leaving in there. Not sure if the camera's going to show it to you or not, but also it's nice for texturing the paint that I'll blend into. So I think that looks good. I read in a Thomas Colvin book, he said, you could lose your life at his welding shop if he saw you touching your hands on freshly blasted steel. Just remember that I probably shouldn't touch it. Don't want to get any oils or anything on that sandblasted steel. It's not sandblasted. Well, it actually is, but it sat for a couple days. Now it's bristle blasted. So I think that's good for that. I'm ready to paint that. I think that's fine. We'll get her smoothed in with a bunch of layers of epoxy paint. And I think we've dealt with the majority of all the little rust spots in there that I didn't like. So we got to test out our little welder, use our Bristle Blaster, and I'd say it's a stunning success in all regards. So thanks for joining me here on the Alaskan Gypsy in the Wrangell, Alaska shipyard under our nice tent on a very blustery day. It's been pouring rain and some wind come and go, but it's nice and comfortable working in here today. I'm going to weld on with 7018, 3/32. Weld these stainless bolt zinc studs on. I tacked them on with the little BestArc MIG gun. And now I've got the little Miller Max Star set up for doing stick and on the 220 plug. And I'm gonna got these bolts on there to keep the splatter from ruining our threads. And I'm gonna weld out around these bolts so that they're secure and hopefully watertight behind them. how the weld was looking. Good. The 7018 is really bad about after you stop and start with it, it's hard to get going again. My dad taught me this trip: if you have a heavy hammer around, you can tap the end of the rod against that to get the slag tip cleaned off so that it'll actually strike an arc when you go to weld next time. Seems to work good. Come on. Okay, and then what I'm doing with these things is bristle blasting them to give some surface profile to that new weld, and also clean them up good so that they're ready to paint.
You're done weld?
Yeah.
I'll unhook the ground.
Yeah, go ahead.
See, look at this one now. This is electrolysis here. This is not underbuilt.
Well, that one is the only one that I put that in there.
Where the old zinc was.
Yeah. If I had a small sandblaster set up, which I actually have a small vacuum blaster, but I don't have a available air supply to run it or the available grit right now, but that would be the way to do this. The Bristle Blaster is definitely better than nothing, but it seems like it doesn't really profile the welds particularly much. It does a little bit on the steel, but kind of seems like if you've ground on it or welded on it, it doesn't give much profile, but still I'd say better than nothing. Okay, looks like I missed one little tiny spot with the weld. Let's go ahead and touch that up actually. And that's that. Okay.
Are you done?
Yeah, just got to video it. There we go. bolt-on zincs, welded on, ready to paint.